This conference will now be recorded.
And here we are
Hi.
again. Miss Tracy Bach and Petra Abilities, also I'm Petra Hoffman, are here again today. And our discussion that we've chosen is loss and grief. Loss and grief is a really big one in today's time. So we're going to go there in a little while. I'm going to first allow Tracy to introduce herself, and then I will introduce myself and my services.
Perfect. Good morning. I am Tracy Bach. So I am a spiritual teacher. I am in the process of trying to teach the world how to use their own intuition, their psychic ability, their connection to the divine, to use it in their everyday life. I'm a psychic medium. I do readings for people on a daily basis. And what else do I do? Oh, I'm a Reiki practitioner. So I do energy work with Reiki. And also another healing modality that I use is called the Emotion Code. And it's all based on everything in the universe being energy and how emotions are energy and they can affect our body. And that's me.
Well, hello, you. Thank you for being human.
Thank you.
That's the name of our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being human. And we all are. And we were just talking about a show we did last week that kind of pointed out our human quality as well when
Yeah.
we were technically challenged once again.
Technically, emotionally.
Right? I'm Petra Hoffman, better known as Petra Abilities in the industry. I am a mental health counselor. I am a clinical hypnotherapist specializing in past life regression work, which I feel is the fastest modality to healing I have ever witnessed. And I am a psychic card reader. I do readings all over the world. And I also run a charity. The name of the charity is Hepatitis C Global Initiatives. However, we are in the process of changing the mission statement and the name of it to wearealllight.org. We've already got the URL. We are taking donations. One of our purposes is to provide this kind of a platform, free counseling and reaching out to us if needed, for those that can't afford it. For those that can afford it, I know we all know somebody who needs counseling and can't afford it. So we would love you to have a look at our GoFundMe page under Hepatitis C Global Initiatives, or under free COVID relief counseling. And if you're able to donate, and if not, if you're one of the people that need help, please do reach out to us. Okay, I'm also a motivational speaker, and if anybody's watching, I'm looking for work in that industry, on online work rather than traveling, because that's kind of out of place these days.
Yeah, sure is.
So there we go.
And there's
That's in
some
a
loss.
nutshell. There's
Yeah,
always
there's
been
loss
for
and
me.
loss and grief around even not being able to travel. So
Yeah,
that's totally in line with what our topic is today. You know, there can be loss and grief around so many things, so many changes, especially in these challenging times. So it's important. I just want to point out that you're probably having some loss and grief over not being able to give your motivational speeches in person, because there's an energy around that feeds you and feeds your audience that you might not get. Not that online isn't perfect, it is perfect, but it just is like, it's just different. So there's some loss or some grief around the changes.
yeah, it's very different. When you're on a stage and feel the energy of the group, you know what direction to take it in. And I'm one of those speakers, I don't have notes. And the most I've ever had is little, what are they called? Flashcards. And I always forget to use them anyway. I never run out of things to say. And I know how to steer. You know, if something's coming up or I'm feeling a certain energy in the audience, I know how to steer that in the direction it needs to go. It's a little different when you're doing it online because you're not able to feel that mass energy of the audience. You can feel the energy, yes, but it's different.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
it's different. You can't really pick it up in the same room, in the same arena.
Yeah.
And
And that's
so,
where you really have to challenge yourself to tune into the divine energy, the universal energy to get your motivation. Almost you have to use, dig deep and dig high almost, to use that. And it's a great opportunity in a
yeah,
way. I mean, but there is, anything that changes drastically in a short period of time, such as, COVID coming in and shutting us all down, there's going to be loss or grief feelings around that. And then one of the challenges or one of maybe our solutions to that is reframing it to see it as an opportunity. Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of people are having to reframe their businesses now.
Yeah.
And, they're suffering even loss and grief about losing their job, as it were, and wondering how the heck they're going to proceed. There's businesses out there that aren't really able to do their work online. We are very lucky there. Sharon Babbitt has arrived. We're very lucky and we're very blessed in our industry to have the option to do it that way, but a lot of people don't. And so, yeah, they're probably grieving their job 20, 30 years or whatever with the job and being around all these individuals at that job is
Yeah.
now taken away from them. So there's
Yeah.
so many different forms of loss and grief that people are experiencing these days, not just losing people, but
Yeah.
losing their livelihood, losing their job, losing their families on the other side of the world because they can't travel to go visit their families,
Yeah.
losing a loved one and not being able to go to the services.
Yeah.
There's another loss on top of a loss, grief on top of grief. Now you can't even go and partake in that service the way
Yeah.
that you would
Yeah.
like.
Even
Lots
people that are
being
loss
torn
of freedom. People mourn their loss of freedom because we're seeing that a lot of this mask wearing, and not we're not going to debate the pros and cons of any of this, but mask wearing versus not mask wearing, going to school versus not going to school, it's creating an energy of loss and grief. Grief and the loss is coming from our loss of our freedom to choose
Yeah,
and not right. So we're losing a lot of that as well. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's tough times for sure.
It's tough times, and what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing is, excuse me, is that it's not just that people are actually losing loved ones these days, a lot more. Suicide rates, all of that is up. Addiction rates, and thereby overdose rates are on the rise. But it's also the loss and grief that surrounds, how should I say it? My mind went off again. It's the loss and grief of all the other, it's not just COVID taking out people. It's other factors. It's heart disease, it's cancer. People aren't being given the proper medical care that they otherwise would. You call a doctor now, we're here in Canada, you call a doctor now, and you have to wait 30 days for that doctor to even return your call, and then you're getting a call. And a lot of people don't know how to advocate for their own health. They don't know what it is they need and how to tell the doctor that. And so the doctors are trying to make these calls as short as humanly possible at the same time. And so there's just so much grieving going on, even for their own health. People that
Yeah,
know they're at risk and they're not able to do much about it.
yeah. There's even grief that's going on, just not even just around health, but even like, I mean, think of the wildfires that are raging on the west coast of the United States and just, in our neighbor in Washington and Oregon. Um, Now we have the loss of our homes, what we loved, our safe place. We're having the grief around, like, what do we do next? We can't even move because everything's on fire. You
Yeah.
know, there's so much loss and grief going on in this beautiful year of 2020, and it's around COVID, it's around freedoms, it's around losing actual people. We're losing our faith in our government systems a lot of time. Right? People are. We're losing our
So,
faith in science sometimes. Not, I'm not speaking personally, but I think on a global scale, we're
yeah.
losing faith in our patriotism, even.
Yeah.
Right? So the year 2020, and this is sort of an aside, I promise 2021 is going to be better. This is preparing us. So, it's preparing us. We're at the peak of almost change, and then we're going to see a rapid change. So I think also there's going to be, along those lines, in 2021 we're going to be able to see behind the veil of all these systems that we're grieving now. We're going to see the reality and the truth about them. So there's some grief around that too. My government doesn't want to protect me. All of these things that people are feeling.
Yeah.
2021 is going to be an opportunity, but for now, we still, and I do want to comment, sorry for interrupting you, Petra. I do want us to address how grief doesn't have a time frame,
Yeah.
right? How
Yeah.
many times have people heard, well, why aren't you over that by now?
Phew. And
Right?
everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's different. Every relationship is different. I've seen people grieve harder over losing their cat or their dog than losing any other person in their life.
Yeah.
It's that relationship that you have. And then there's the understanding. A lot of people lack the understanding of what it means to cross over to the other side. I mean, none of us gets out of here alive, which I tell people all the time. So there's that fear of death. But that's another thing about past life regression and that kind of hypnotherapy work is anybody I've ever regressed has come back saying, I am no longer afraid of death.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid of the people I leave behind. That worries me, but I'm no longer afraid to die because it's such a, just like you hear going to the light and feeling that comfort and not wanting to come back from near death experiences. You hear it all the time. They don't want to come back because that's vacation. We're going to the place where we get to rest.
Yeah.
And so that's why we teach loss and grief in a manner of speaking is how do you process that, and giving you new tools on how to process the love of a lost one, be it a pet, or a person or whoever it is in your life, being able to process that, knowing that no matter where they were, they're not going to hell, they're just going to rest.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to rest for a while and they will always be there. Their energy will always be there. And it's a matter of understanding and then believing. So
Right.
creating an awareness on what that really looks like, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, just speaking of the other side, I think you and I, part of our mission is to teach about the light. And so when the body does transition from a walking, talking, physical form into an energetic form, it's where somebody like you or I can step in potentially. And, maybe you do some mediumship, maybe you do some psychic cards, maybe it's more about validation for the person that's maybe lost. We're going to say lost, or can we say misplaced?
Right.
Misplaced a loved one. We tend to think that, once their physical life is over, it's over. Like that's what the fear comes from. That's part of where the grief comes from. It's part of where the loss comes from. And so part of our journey and our teaching style is to teach that it's just a different form of the same person. You
It's
know,
just a
you,
transition.
it's a transition. We go from this meat sack into this beautiful light, right? And light and airy and no limitations. So part of that is I'm just it can be faith-based, you know, but I've had personally, I remember the very, very, very first time that I was created into a human. And it was through a meditation. And I remembered it and it did absolutely just derailed me. Sorry, that's my pup. Derailed me for weeks. I was devastated that I was actually a human being. I wanted to be that spark of essence that I remember being, and just the pain of having to leave that beautiful, peaceful place. But you know, I'm over it because I know I have a purpose. So I spent, you know, weeks and weeks in grief around having to be human. So there's that
Being
component
a
as well.
human is a hard job.
It's a hard job.
It's a hard job. Um, I also think that one of the most important things to recognize when we've lost somebody is to be aware. Be aware of, I don't know if I've spoken to anyone in the last couple years that has lost somebody close to them that hasn't said, okay, you know, the lights flickered or the radio came on and it wasn't even plugged in, or, you know, things like that happening where they've actually had conversations with their loved one. To be aware, if you're not aware and if you're not in the present, in the now, and you're caught in your thinking mind, our angels, our guides, and loved ones crossed over. When they communicate with us, we're not aware of it because we're in our ego mind. We're thinking of the past, or we're thinking of the future, or we're thinking about something, dinner, whatever it is. They can only touch base with you if you're aware of it. Also, to pay attention, and especially lately, I've been talking about dreams a lot.
Dream
And
work.
they're
Yeah.
coming more and more and more to us in dreams. And so, what I would suggest for everyone, because oftentimes we don't remember our dreams upon waking, kind of like when we come into the world and the, you know, our memory is wiped. It's wiped again when we have our dreams, because I think that those are dimensional lives that we're leading. What I suggest to people is to take a pen and notepad to bed. Okay, you don't have to turn on the light. You don't have to be fully awake. Write down that 1 or 2 words. What did you see? What's the symbol? Okay, did you see a candle? Did you see a car? What is it that you saw? Did you see that person? And I'm going to give you an example. When my children's father passed away, about a year later, and sometimes it takes a while because they're, you know, they've got work to do up there, they've got stuff to do, they don't always appear right away. About a year later, I had 3 dreams, consecutive dreams. I don't know if it was like each night or each week, but there were 3 dreams that came, and in all 3 dreams there was a knock on the door and a present, a box, different size boxes in all 3 dreams, sitting at the doorstep. And he would just look at me and smile and then walk away. All these years, I've wondered, what the hell are those gifts? I never got to open them. I never got to see what was in them. I never knew all these years what they were. Only about 4 or 5 days ago, I had one of those aha moments where all of a sudden I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was presenting me with my own gifts. Because at that time I was still a mess in life. I was, you know, using the proverbial band-aids. I was not living my life properly or healthily. And so he was showing me that I have gifts that I have left to open. And so I finally got it after all these years, and he's been gone since 1999.
Wow.
So
Wow.
all these years later, I now know what those dreams meant.
Yeah.
And then I'd forgotten all those years, I'd forgotten about those dreams. So that's why it's kind of important to write that kind of stuff down. And then often what happens is you'll be shown different symbols, you'll be shown different signs or different communications. You don't have to write a story. You'll know when you write that 1 or 2 words in the dark, you'll remember then. And then what happens is oftentimes those pieces come together like a jigsaw puzzle, and then it makes sense.
Yeah.
So now you look at all those different days and what you dreamt, and it'll come together.
It's important to note too when you're doing dream work, note not just what you see, but also how you feel in the dream.
Or
Is
smell or taste.
smell, yeah, but do you feel comfort? When you first wake up and know that you had a dream, is it comfort? What is it? And make note of that too, because it all just adds to your jigsaw puzzle. And you know, our loved ones want to be communicating with us. And so when our mind, our subconscious is open, and our conscious mind is almost shut down to allow all that energy in, is when it's easiest for them and easiest for us to accept, because we don't have any obstacles around it, any belief systems around it. So often that is in the dream state. So I'm glad that you did bring up dreams, because I know it can be very, very confusing for people that are in grief when they say, oh, I dreamt about my husband, my dog, my brother, my sister, my friend, whatever. It can be confusing because there's a sense of like almost like joy in the dream, and then you wake up and it's almost like a double whammy. You feel the grief again because they're not there. If we can reframe that and go, they are here. Thank you for coming in my dream, as opposed to making it feel like exacerbating your sense of loss. Right? It's just it's hard to do because people are in grief. It hurts. It hurts to not be able to hug them. But no, like it's reframing it of, oh yes, there they are. You know, that's an important part of grief, I think.
It
Yeah.
is. And to listen for that whisper, don't blow it off. If you hear the whisper in your ear, if you feel the hand on your shoulder, if you feel a breeze come through and there's no breeze in the room, pay attention to that. And then what happens is the first person that pops in your mind, that's who it is.
That's absolutely
and don't question it. People question it. Even I see shadows and I question it. Oh, well, is that, I'm just, right. Everybody questions it, but try not to question it, and take that moment and appreciate that moment, and use that moment when you feel the hand on your shoulder to ask them, do you have a message for me? What is it you want me to know?
Yeah.
And convey the love back to them, because that is we are all attached by a little thin silver thread, whether we are physically here or whether we have crossed over. We are still connected by that thread. We are all one. We are energy. We are not mass, and science is proving that more and more every day. So there's no reason that you cannot communicate with those that have crossed over. There's no reason. It's just a matter of learning how to tap in, because they're always there. They can be in a lot of places at once, and they're always there.
And you're afraid. And don't be afraid. I know that I've heard this over and over again in my practice of, oh my goodness, I think I felt my so-and-so, my loved one communicating with me, and they automatically frame it, that's an omen. They're trying to warn me about something. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. It is what they're trying to warn you is, I'm coming. I want to say I love you again. That's all. There's no omens. It's not an omen of something. It's just their way of communicating. The last thing they want to do is make you afraid. They just want to make you afraid, right? And we would probably, we know that there are skeptics around, and that's okay. And they will say, oh, believing in the afterlife or believing in, our loved ones being able to communicate with us is a crutch. And my response to that would be, if it's a crutch and if it is placebo, I'm okay with that. Because in that moment, I truly believe it, and it makes me feel joyous. It makes me feel loved and at peace. So I happen to know it's not placebo, and I happen to know, opposite. But, for skeptics that are saying, well, you're just using it as a crutch. If it gets me through grief, if it gets me through pain, if it gets me in a place of balance and flow and alignment, then it's okay. Religion is a crutch too, really, if then we start, because everything is so faith-based. So if we can use our intuition and trust our intuition and not let ego in so much, we will start to get the messages and that connection and I feel like we'll move through grief a little bit more quickly or more
It's the
peacefully.
deep
Maybe not
knowing.
quickly, more peacefully.
It's the deep knowing. And
Yeah.
and when we're dismissing these things that do occur, it makes the other side have to work even harder to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. And you know, I know a lot of cases very close to me. Two of them are my children who have never dealt with losing their father. And in my stepson's case, he's now also lost his mother. And in the process of losing his mother, he lost his brother, who's still physically here, but is totally messed up and just not a very good person. And so, having lost his father, I remember speaking to him about it one day, and I hope my children don't mind me using them as part of my story. But I remember telling Brandon that I was really worried that my daughter hadn't dealt with the death of her father. And I mean, we're now what year is it? 2020, and he died in December 1999. And he said, "Well, I haven't either." And I said, "Oh my God, I never knew." Right. And so what a lot of people do is they kind of put it on the back burner and they shove it over there, and they just don't pay attention to the fact that they've lost this person because it hurts too much.
Sure.
But sooner or later, it's going to slap you upside the head anyway. The pain
Mm-hmm.
is going to come in. And so I hate to say that I hope they get to a place in their life that they can handle the pain when it comes in, because they're going to have to face it head on. If you don't face your fears, and if you don't face your pain head on, you don't get through it. So then you're always going to be stuck in that limbo stage of having lost somebody so very close to you, but not wanting to acknowledge it. Okay, you're always going to be stuck in limbo. And then they're going to have a harder time communicating with you. And he's communicated with both my children on very many occasions, and they've told me about it. But they're not willing yet to go into their own pain body in order to explore how to get through the grieving process. They've never really grieved. And so that's really important too, to recognize that it's a process, a healthy process that we must go through.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can feel the pain in little bits. What I worry when people don't acknowledge their grief and pack it away is that grief, that pain gets embedded so deeply into our bodies. It gets
Yes.
harder to remove. And it'll cause dis-ease of the body, of the spirit, of the mind. And we don't have to be thinking about it, but it just does its, energetic thing, what all energy does, and it just it stays there. It's like a lump. And so when our energy is stuck in there, when an energy is stuck in there, we don't flow. So then we start to have maybe some personality, like triggers. We get triggers, emotional triggers. Then we'll get physical pain sometimes, right? Because we're just misaligned. So it's important we don't want to hold on to the pain. We want to move through it. So whether we hold on to it now or we deal with it now or later, I say deal with it now, little bits at a time, because then it doesn't get so embedded, right?
Yeah. So what Tracy's saying is that emotions get embedded in your body organs. This is how, what stirs up cancer cells. This is how people get autoimmune diseases. All of these things is because the emotions that we carry, whether we are aware of them or not. So the emotion of having loss and grief is still there, whether you're paying your attention on it or not, whether you're recognizing it or not, or whether you're just putting it in a drawer, it's still there. And then different things happen that then trigger that emotion, and those emotions get stopped. We don't want them stuck in your body organs. We want them to be released, which is why we need you to move through the pain and through the healing and seek help and talk to other people who have lost loved ones. If you're a parent that has lost a child, I've seen no bigger sorrow, no bigger pain in all of my history in this lifetime. It's the biggest pain I've ever seen, is to lose your own child. So that's a really tough one. And know too that you'll never forget. Okay, you'll never totally get through the pain of it, but it can become better if you deal with it now rather than later. Okay, if you're dealing with it 10 or 20 years later, then it's still going to take the same healing process, right? It's still going to take that time to heal. So the sooner you start to heal and get yourself help and go to, circles or look up resources online or go see a counselor or do something to help you understand that you're not the only one that bears this particular kind of pain, to know that there are other people out there and to help one another through it. And that's really what it's about. And that's what humanity is about, is we need that human interaction to help lift one another up and help one another through. And there may be tools that you haven't thought of, or insights, or different ways of looking at things that you haven't thought of, coming from people that are in the same position, in the same boat you are. And all of us suffer loss and grief of some sort, but some are definitely more painful than others. And then it's your own emotional status. How do you move through pain? How do you move through fear? Some of us find it easier because of our knowledge, perhaps, than others do. So this is why we share these kinds of things with you, and for you to really go out there and get the help you need.
Yeah. And I can guarantee you that, and I'm not trying to minimize anybody's pain. This is not the direction I'm trying to go, but I can guarantee every person that's lost a loved one, that loved one does not want you sitting in pain for 20 years.
No, they don't.
That's the last thing. So, they understand it hurts, and they have almost sorrow. Not that you feel sorrow on this other side, but like sort of the sorrow of your pain. They're, they don't want you to have pain. So for you to sit in it for 20 years before you even address it, that is not what they would want for you or anybody that they love. So it's really tough. And you don't want to be the pain. You don't want your legacy and your legacy of the relationship you had with your loved one, that beautiful legacy, to be about pain and loss. We don't want to send that on to all the children and all the next generations, because that can happen. We can be having a grief or fear or pain or whatever the emotion is that's trapped in our body. We can actually send that on to our children. They can inherit it from us. Yes. So we never want to do that. We want, if at all possible, we need to move through it. We need an emotion is an energy that is supposed to come. We feel it, we learn the lesson, and it moves through and transmutes into something else. So we would never want to give our grandchildren or our nieces or our nephews or our partners, we never want to give them that gift of carrying a pain body. We have enough stuff to deal with being human in this lifetime. We don't need other people's stuff. So, not to be flippant about it, but, like Petra says, do absolutely reach out, and not one size fits all. So
Right.
maybe somebody needs to see a medium. Maybe somebody needs to see a counselor. Maybe another person needs to be in a group situation. Maybe some people need to automatic write. Maybe some people need to volunteer to fill them up with charity, or gratitude. So there's not one size fits all, but I do encourage anybody that's feeling grief on any level or loss on any level, keep trying.
Yes.
Keep trying different techniques, because it only benefits you, and it actually benefits the planet vibrationally, and it benefits your past loved ones, or your loved ones that have crossed over. It benefits them too, because that vibration hits them. They feel up too. So
And a
yeah.
lot of what people feel too when they go through this is abandonment. Okay. I had a client just yesterday whose ex-husband had committed suicide, and this was I think she said more something like 20 years ago. And she had always, we blame ourselves. Then there's the blame game, there's the shame, there's the guilt, especially suicide, or I didn't take care of them good enough, or I'm the reason they left, especially if they state it. It's like, well, you're doing this to me, so I'm going to
Right.
kill myself. Now you've got so much pain upon pain. Always be mindful that it is never your fault. When somebody chooses to commit suicide, they are just wanting out of their own pain body. They don't know how to escape the pain, whatever their reality is. And in this case, the reality in his head wasn't what was really going on. He thought things about her that weren't even true, or not even close to true, but it became his reality. And so it was that reality that caused him to take the next step, because he couldn't handle the pain. And that's why people commit suicide. They don't commit suicide to hurt you or to leave you behind or to abandon you. And what she also said that really had an impact on me, she said, there's one thing I knew about him. The one thing I trusted about that man was that he would never leave me. And I'm like, and then he left you. And
Yeah.
she goes, yeah, I didn't think of that one, right? Never thought that would be a way, but that's what he did. He left her.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that she had trusted, that he would never leave her.
Yeah.
So there
I'm glad
is
you brought up,
abandonment too, which is huge.
yeah. I'm glad that you brought up about the pain on pain, because, when we lose somebody, a partner, especially I think a long-term partner, some, that have been married a long time, I think the pain on pain, so we're going through loss and grief, but we're also sometimes feeling emotions of anger, emotions of resentment, abandonment, all of that. And then we feel guilty about that. And it doesn't even have to be to suicide. It can just be to, natural causes or accident or whatever. So then we have guilt and shame around that. So, we got to start at the bottom. We got to start at the foundation. The foundation is, okay, let's deal with some of the grief. Let's forgive ourselves for feeling angry, because it's normal. It's normal to feel a little bit of anger. So don't hate yourself. Thank you for being human. Being angry is a human thing. So thank you. So forgive yourself that. And then you move through one emotion at a time. It is very layered. Grief, loss is very layered, because we are going to feel, so it's almost like we're bombarded with every emotion, almost like it opens up our soul to feel every emotion. Because we're fearful. We lose control. When we lose somebody, it's because we understand that we have absolutely zero control in our life at the basis, and so that makes us feel very vulnerable. So
Yeah.
honor that and look at it.
Yeah, and put focus and awareness on the emotions that you're feeling. If you're feeling angry, put awareness on that. Yeah, I'm feeling angry, and this is why I'm feeling angry. And if you're feeling abandoned, this is why. You left me, asshole, right? Be aware of it, and use that towards your healing. Because any emotion, be it anger, fear, pain, whatever the emotion is, when you push it away, it'll only come in harder, which is why I fear for my kids, because they've pushed it away for so long that when it comes in, it might just come hurtling in.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that isn't the case, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it'll be a gentle cycle, a gentler cycle. But the more you push away any emotion, the more it will come in. So the only way is to shine the light up on the emotion and say, okay, this is how I feel, and rightfully so, and not feel guilty or shameful because you're angry because they left you. Okay, it's okay to be
Even if it's not, even if it's not rightfully so, even if you're feeling an emotion that maybe doesn't seem like it's a right emotion considering the circumstance,
but it is because you're feeling it.
you're feeling it. I'm saying you are not your emotions.
That's
A
right.
feeling is just a feeling. That's all it is. An emotion is just an emotion. It doesn't define you. It shouldn't be a part of you permanently. It's just one of those. I think it's sometimes, it's more philosophical than this, but it's the gift from the divine, a gift from the universe, because they really, God or source or whatever you call that bigger thing that we all come from, has never been human. And so it's a gift from the divine that they know what it's like to feel human. So thank you for being human. So that's what an emotion is. It is not who we are. It is not our personality. It is not our soul. So to have judgment around an emotion, it has no bearing. It's still just an emotion. It's just a thought. Even with your thoughts, that's just a thought. So to even sometimes when you get through like the really catastrophic part of the grief, like the immediate catastrophic feeling of the grief, to even now when it comes in sort of later, go, oh wow, I'm feeling grief again. Isn't that interesting how grief would come up when I'm making risotto? Look at it from a curious perspective, and then it'll flow through also easier. Not in the beginning, because it's going to be very, very hard to do that in the beginning. But as you are moving through the grief, and these sort of loss emotions pop up on occasion, because they'll pop up less and less. Look at it from a curious perspective. I haven't moved all the way through my grief yet. Isn't that curious? Okay, I'll feel it. Today I'm allowing myself to feel it. I'm feeling the loss, the pain, the fear. I'm going to feel that today for however long it takes to move through. And then I put my shoes on and I take on the next challenge.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how you put that we go through, when we suffer loss and grief, that we go through every single emotion that we can possibly. It's like an open wound to all your emotions, but to learn how to let them pass through you rather than stay within you. And that's where things get stuck. Okay. You need to learn what Tracy just said on how to allow them to move through you by being aware of them and being curious about them and not beating yourself up for having those emotions. That's really important, because as soon as you turn that emotion of I'm angry that that person left me into now I feel guilty and shameful that I even thought that, no, let that pass through you. Why are you feeling guilty and shameful? Analyze that, put the light on that, and allow it to move through you. And give yourself permission. That's a really big one. Give yourself permission. If today you want to grieve and cry all day, give yourself permission to grieve and cry all day, because tears also are a release. And grieving and going through the process is a release, as long as we don't continuously get stuck there.
Yeah.
And so we won't even go into victimhood and how some people want to stay stuck there, because we're hoping that,
That's the
anyone
point.
watching
Through.
this
Yeah.
choose to be the victim and stay stuck in that.
Well, and also it's I think as a society over the last few generations at least, that it was like stiff upper lip. Okay, this shit happens, come on,
Well,
put on your big girl panties or your put on your big boy panties and move through it. And it's important that if you want to cry and grieve on a day, that you just do it. And if somebody says, "Oh, you're not through it yet," no, for me, it's not through it. It's not through it. And so allow yourself as long as you need. Is it time for cards?
it's time for cards. Um, so yeah, I guess what I've just been drawn to, I haven't used these in a long time.
Cool.
We
Talking to
got a couple
heaven.
more minutes before we do the cards.
Does Sharon
We
have a
are
question?
here to help you. Tracy is a psychic medium. We're all over the world. We're global. We have online services. We're global. She works a lot with the emotion code. She does Reiki, which is also energy healing work. Reiki would be something really good for loss and grief, as a matter of fact, to help move those emotions through your body organs so they don't remain stuck. Reiki would be a really good one. And talk about it. Make sure you talk about it. If you need counseling, if you need hypnotherapy or other kinds of psychic card readings, I'm not a medium like Tracy is. I do see people crossed over, but only upon their presentation. I can't call them. I don't have the gift, and I've never honed the gift. Everybody can hone it, but I've never honed it because my life goes in a different direction with it. But if you need any of our services, please feel free to reach out. We're both available on Facebook, Petra Hoffman, also known as Petra Abilities, and Tracy Bach is Tracey, last name Bach. And we're on Facebook. I've got a website, petrabilities.com. It needs a lot of updating. I've been gone in Belize for almost 2 years, so but you can get a hold of me through there.
Perfect.
So if you know of anyone or you yourself need help, please do reach out to us. Okay, we're not gonna close the door. So now we could do card readings.
I haven't picked my deck yet.
I know, I forgot to today. I was all ready to rumble. And then I thought, well, this is the perfect deck, given loss and grief. And Sharon being here. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi.
Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I was thinking about manifestation earlier. It's a good time to manifest things,
Right.
but it's not the subject. But anyways.
Yeah, no, so quickly
Well,
for manifest.
It can be the subject. You can manifest healing for yourself. I know that you've had loss recently, and you can manifest everything that we've spoken about, how to work with those emotions and have them flow through you rather than get stuck, and to manifest a speedier recovery and maybe a fuller recovery of those emotions. Knowing she's always there, knowing you're going to see her again. And that's another thing I'd like to mention real quick before we do the reading, is that having done enough past life regressions and having been regressed myself, our circle of friends and our family, all those closest to us, they show up lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So they may be, your mother could have been your brother in a past life. We take on different roles, different genders, but that tight circle is the same tight circle. And then the variances of other people that we meet and bring into our lives. So very important to note that if it's somebody really close to you, you will see them again in, the form that they left, or looking even better than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sharon, as far as manifestation.
Manifest that your mother comes and talks to you. Manifest that you move through this as painlessly as possible. So I'm glad you brought that.
Yeah, good for manifestation too, just in your personal life. Tonight is a very good night to write down some intentions and some goals and try and feel them because it is new moon. So tonight is new moon is where we create and manifest. So um, if just a quick, if you want to write down some of the things that you'd like to manifest into your life, don't put I need blah blah blah. Say, let's say money. Write down on a piece of paper. I am. I have a lot of abundance. Thank you for my abundance in my life. So don't do it as if it's going to be in the future, because then you're manifesting it always in the future. Make it so it's now. Thank you for my health. Thank you for the money. Thank you for being able to pay all my bills and having money left over at the end of the month. And then try and make how that feels, try and feel that emotion around that. And then just do some sort of ceremony, thanking the new moon and burning that piece of paper and offering it to heaven.
I have a really good one for abundance that has not failed on anyone I've given it to. I am free and financial abundance flows to me. Write it down. Sharon knows too. I am free and financial abundance flows to me. Okay. I
Okay.
don't know how many people have reported back to me they got an increase in pay when they thought they were going to be let loose because they had an anger management issue on their job, and in fact ended up getting a raise and a new car and all kinds of stuff. All right, Tracy, do you want to go first?
I think I went first last time.
All right, I'll go first. Let's see what oh, look at that. Look at how it popped right up.
Nice.
That one, not even real quick like. So here we go. Ah, well, isn't that interesting? So this is a lot of what we've been talking about. Your loved one, the first person that pops to mind, wants you to know that you have nothing to feel guilty about. All right? You are not in charge of how they passed. Unless you killed them, you have nothing to feel sorry about or guilty about. So they need you. They would like you to be guilt-free. And I don't know what it is about us human beings. Thank you all for being human. That there is that part of us when somebody crosses over that we feel it had something to do with us. The same as when we are abused or even sexually abused as a child. There's a part of us that feels it is our fault. And they know better. They've crossed over. They know better now, and they don't want you feeling that way. They don't want you feeling any shame or guilt that you weren't there at their moment of death, that you weren't there to prevent their moment of death. So please, they want you to let it go and move through you. Recognize that you feel guilty, recognize what it is that's making you feel guilty, and then really be honest with yourself. Is it really my fault? Come on now, right?
Mhm.
So be very true to yourself and allow that to pass through you. And please, please know you have nothing to feel guilty about today or any day. And again, let me reiterate, none of us gets out of here alive.
Yeah. Perfect. Beautiful. Beautifully said. Okay. I am just going to do, haha. Okay. So I am using Kyle Gray's Keepers of the Light. And I got Commander Ashtar. So what Commander Ashtar is basically telling us, this is more about not necessarily about grief and loss, but all the emotions that we're feeling in this year of 2020. It's like the 2020 bingo card, like all kinds of disasters and fires and pandemics and so much loss going on. That's what happened. This is our sign. This is kind of our call to action. So Commander Ashtar wants us to lead, wants us to take charge of our life in whatever way that we can do that. So if that means that we have to figure out a way of working remotely, we have to do that. We can no longer, this is our call to action to change things that no longer work in our life, that no longer work on a global scale. It's our call to lead positive action against things like racism that has come up, the systemic racism that we see all over the world. It's about equality of men and women. And it's not just about talking it, it's now about walking the talk. So it is now we're moving into this place of, okay, now we've processed how we feel about it. We've taken on some damage and some hits, and we are very opinionated. But now it's about not being opinionated. It's about going into a peaceful place. What is the divine telling me? What's my intuition telling me? And now put that into action. Whether that is going on a Black Lives Matter march, if that's what feels you strongly. Peaceful move to action. And it's also about finding ways in which you can engage with your own intuition, your own divinity, and then pass it on to the world. So these are not ways in which I'm thinking, but these are ways in which I'm acting now. We're moving past okay, I'm self-evaluating. I know what works for myself. Now it's a call to action for all the light workers out there. So however that looks, make it beautiful and lovely and heart-centered, and do things that fill you up, but you can also pass on so that we're all healing on a global scale.
I love it. And it's so important to reiterate. So many people talk about all these grand ideas all freaking day long, all these great ideas they have, how they want to do this and they want to do that and now it's time to do it. And a lot of us have the time now to change course, to steer direction, and to be creative. If you're in a job environment that you can't, for whatever reason, bring online, come up with something. Be creative. Think outside the box. Ask your guides and angels for help, source, aliens, whatever you believe in. Ask them for help in that. And then learn how to manifest, like Sharon says. Because we all have the ability to manifest. And I'll tell you real quick, the main rules about manifestation is that you imagine already being there, having what it is you want, not going to have, but already having it. If you want that little red sports car, imagine being in it, smelling the leather, top down, feeling the breeze, the sunshine on your face, feeling the tires hit the pavement, smelling the ocean breeze that you're passing. Be in that car, okay? And be specific as to what it is you want. The more specific you can be, the more the universe can help you. And so, yeah, act. That's something that I've always told everyone when I was in Belize and I had fallen back down the rabbit hole, believe it or not. People were like, it's COVID, Petra. You got to be counseling people. You got to be helping people. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm broken right now. And so I'm going to fix me and I'm going to walk the walk instead of talk the talk, because how can I help you when I'm broken, sitting there broken? That's not cool. And so anybody out there that has that work to do, that has a breaking point, take a step back from the healing process and work on yourself, because so many healers work on other people and forget about working on themselves. So I believe very, very strongly that we must all walk the walk and quit just frickin' talking about it.
Yeah, and that's fine. There are rest times. There are definitely rest times where we are just sort of gathering our energy before we act. We're still working, but this is now put all those thoughts, put all that work into action. The globe, the humanity, all dimensions of time and space need it. We're coming into 2021 where you're going to need that call to action that we all know that you have inside of you. And just one more thing about the manifesting. If you want a red sports car, go and test drive one. feel it, smell it, go and test it. Act like you already have it, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're driving a little Civic that's like a rust bucket, wave at people as if you're in a red sports car. Rev the engine, rev the engine. Just do all the things that somebody with a red sports car would have.
Yeah. Take it for a test drive. Go to the lot and say, hey, that car looks pretty interesting. I might buy it. Let me drive it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important, because then you're actually putting yourself there. So it is 12:11 and we've got to go. And we love you all for being human. So thank you for being human and being with us today. If you watch this later on whatever platform we put it on, it will have just as much relevance, and so will the card readings. And I think we might do a show on just card readings coming up soon. All right.
Yeah.
Love you all.
Free readings. Take care, everybody. See you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Are you stopping?